everyone. My name's Andrew Ingram. I'm a writer, a comedian, a photographer, an artist. I do a lot of stuff. One of the things I did is I wrote this book. It's called A Million Butterfly Wings. It just came out on November 30th, and I would be thrilled if you checked it out. I'm gonna do a reading for you from it now, from the preface and then from chapter 17. The preface will kind of give you the concept for the book. The whole book is written from the perspective of a girl's best friend. And the girl is odd. She knows everything. She is omniscient. She knows the answer to any question you could think to ask. She knows if aliens are real. She knows if God is real. She knows where the bodies are buried. She knows who killed Kennedy. But also, she's just a barista. She works at a coffee shop, and she helps people when she can. And this is her story. Sherwin, Indiana. In the town of Sherwin, Indiana, at the corner of 4th and Chestnut, is a little brick coffee shop called Dale's. On weekdays between 6 a.m. and 4 p.m., you can find behind the varnished oak counter a barista named Claire who knows everything. Or at least you could. No one ever quite figured out how Claire knew everything. Not even me. And I knew her better than anyone. If you ever asked, she'd just toss her hair or wink and say something like, "One of the best things about knowing everything is knowing what questions you should answer." It could be infuriating, but anybody who knew Claire knew to take her at her word. That's the heart of what you need to know about her. There aren't many people who don't know the name Claire Sullivan. And I'm sure by the time I finish whatever this thing I'm writing is, everyone knows she's gone. The papers are already talking about her disappearance. And the talking heads and pop psychologists are speculating, as they always do, as to where she went and why she let what happened happen. Her neighbors will make appearances next, but not me. I'm holed up hundreds of miles from where anybody knows me. At least until I finish this. But not me. I'm going to take this whole goddamn thing again. I fell apart at the end.
You got this, babe.
In the town of Sherwin, Indiana, at the corner of 4th and Chestnut, is a little brick coffee shop called Dale's. On weekdays between 6 a.m. and 4 p.m., you could find behind the varnished oak counter a barista named Claire, who knows everything. Or at least you could. No one ever quite figured out why or how Claire knew everything, not even me. And I knew her better than anyone. If you ever asked, she'd just toss her hair or wink and say something like, "One of the best things about knowing everything is knowing what questions I should answer." It could be infuriating, but anybody who knew Claire knew to take her at her word. That's the heart of what you need to know about her. There aren't many people who don't know the name Claire Sullivan. And I'm sure by the time I finish whatever this thing I'm writing is, everyone knows she's gone. The papers are already talking about her disappearance. The talking heads and pop psychologists are speculating, as they always do, as to where she went and why she let what happened happen. Her neighbors will make appearances next, but not me. I'm holed up hundreds of miles from where anybody knows me, at least until I finish this damn thing. No interviews for me, thanks. this is what I have to say about Claire Sullivan. This is all I have to say. All right, so that is the preface, and then we're going to pick up kind of at the turning point of the story where Claire sort of decides to reveal her secret to the world. She contacts a reporter and tells her story. Lets the world know that she is an omniscient being. And this is what takes place the day that article goes live. The next morning dawned cool and bright. The citizens of Sherwin woke to find a special edition of the Chronicle on their doorsteps. The headline read, "The Girl Who Knows Everything." Most folks were surprised, but seemed more shocked that Claire had done an interview than that they had a bona fide superhero in their midst. I reported to the little yellow house with the red door at 6 a.m. with donuts in hand to find Deputy Waldo Jackson parked out front, bleary-eyed and grateful for a bear claw. "You probably don't need to wait out here, bud," I told him. "I'm sure Claire would let you hang out in the house." "She already offered," Wally said. "But that ain't procedure. I'll just sit out here, listen to Hank Williams, and wait for trouble." Inside, I found Claire freshly showered, lounging on the couch in pajamas. "Why do I feel more nervous than you look?" I asked. She shrugged. "I've made my peace with it. Maybe I've matured over the past couple years. But it was easier to tell the world who I am than to tell Sheriff Callahan back when Connor Franklin disappeared. But just so you know, mature or not, I just became the most famous person on the planet. And there is no way I'm getting off this couch today. So I expect to be waited upon." "Fair enough." I dropped the box of donuts on the coffee table and took a seat in one of the plush chairs her mother bought when we were kids, a Boston cream in hand. "You know Sarah isn't going to be impressed if you eat without a plate." Claire reached for a donut of her own without rising from her relaxed position on the couch. "And why should I care what she thinks?" "Because you like her." Claire drew out the word as if we were back in middle school. I gave her my best glare. "Was nothing sacred?" "Shut up." "You guys have fun last night?" "You really have no concept of privacy, do you?" "It's like you don't know me at all," Claire said, mouth full of eclair. "Now that I'm famous, I'm going to trade you in for a new best friend." I'm sure folks are lining up to be besties with the girl who knows the worst thing they've ever done but can't remember it's rude to talk with their mouth full. "It's an endearing quirk," Claire said, words almost incomprehensible as she continued to shove donut in her mouth. "Like how Marilyn Monroe used to wipe boogers on her lovers." "Seriously, that's disgusting," I said. "Should we see if you made the news?" I asked, and flipped on the television. Sure enough, a reporter from Channel 5 stood in front of Dale's, a big fuzzy microphone in her hand. Claire cheered. I looked at her, surprised. "What, you want to be miserable all day? I'm just going to lean into this." I thought for a moment, then gave a half-hearted cheer of my own. Although Dale's coffee shop has been open for half an hour, Miss Daniels, who we've been told usually works the morning shift, has yet to appear. Where could she be? Claire wondered sardonically. Probably hiding from the press like a coward. We giggled. Claire's story took the greater Midwest news market by storm, and we spent the next hour flipping through channels mocking the coverage. Most reporters were posted somewhere in Sherwin with seemingly no idea how to find Claire. Though we did watch Deputy Wally have a polite but firm conversation with one of the reporters from Indianapolis on the street right outside. A little after 7, Claire mentioned that I should probably go outside and wait for Sarah unless I wanted Wally to stop her too. 5 minutes later, I led Sarah inside, giving her a hand with 4 drink carriers full of Dale's coffee. "I forgive you for everything," Claire said, taking a drink covered in whipped cream and chocolate. "Well, if I knew it'd be this easy, I'd have been a little bit more ruthless in my reporting," Sarah said, collapsing into a plush chair of her own. "How have you been holding up?" "Oh, we're having a grand old time," said Claire, as she dunked a half-eaten donut in her sugary concoction. "The reporter from Channel 8 lost his hairpiece over by the mill." "Oh, serve Sam right. That thing wasn't convincing anybody," Sarah said, then got serious. "Listen, it might be a bit of a breach of journalistic integrity, but I want to help you deal with all those reporters. This could turn into a shit show if we just ignore them." Claire brushed her comment aside with a casual wave of her donut. She hadn't risen from the couch since I'd arrived. "I said everything I wanted to say to you," she said. "I'm done giving interviews." "They won't just go away, Claire." "It's all going to be fine, I promise," Claire said. "But have a seat and hang out for a while. We're mocking newscasters." "Really? Making fun of broadcasters is my favorite game," Sarah said, clapping her hands together. "But you're a journalist," I said. "Yeah, a print journalist," she said. "Most of those prima donnas are so busy reapplying their makeup they couldn't find a story if they tripped over it." "Ah, this is going to be fun," Claire said. We spent the next couple hours eating terrible food and wisecracking about the news coverage. A few reporters managed to get interviews with locals, but for the most part, Sherwinites brushed them off, annoyed. Henry Farthing only went on camera long enough to say, "Claire Daniels is a saint, and if she doesn't want to talk to you vultures, then you should leave her alone." We cheered. By the time the morning news wrapped up, around 10, most of the reporters in town had figured out where Claire lived. And Wally had to call for backup, and Claire announced she'd be taking a nap on the couch. If we wanted to stick around, we were welcome to go to the kitchen. "You know she's going to have to talk to them eventually," Sarah said, as we sat at the cheap linoleum table in the breakfast nook. "Probably," I said, but if Claire doesn't want to do it now, there's a reason." Sarah nodded. "I guess there would be," she said, then colored slightly. "Listen, about last night." "What? Did something happen last night?" I asked innocently. Her blush deepened. "I didn't plan it or anything." "Plan what?" "Please don't say it was a mistake," I thought. Her eyes narrowed. "You're funny. I just wanted you to know I'm not always a calculating monster." "Only sometimes?" I said, and placed my hand on top of hers. She rolled her eyes at my corny comment, but when she spoke, her tone was earnest. "I never apologized for how we met," she said. "I flirted with you so I could get information about Claire. I should have apologized before kissing me." She nodded and leaned forward slightly. I did the same, my eyes closed instinctively, and our lips met. "That was fun," I said when we finally broke apart. She giggled. "You're really bad at this, aren't you?" "I got a calculating monster to kiss me twice, so," I gave an exaggerated shrug. "Fair enough," she said, and did it again, deeper this time. We talked for a while, about my family, about hers, about her life in Chicago, and how Leviathan Hunter was coming along. She was engaging, intelligent, and had a shocking number of reference points in common with me. Our biggest differences stemmed from the fact that she got out of Sherwin, and I didn't. I'd never regretted that. I loved Sherwin, and honestly, although I didn't feel close to many of my neighbors, I loved the people. Still, the more she talked about the world she'd experienced outside our rural little town, the more I felt like maybe I'd missed out. Around noon, Claire called from the living room. You guys are cute and all, but unless you want Wally to put Frank in handcuffs, you should probably go out front and stop him. What? I said, but was already out of my chair, past Claire, still lounging on the couch, and into the front yard before I got an answer. The side on the other side of the door was barely recognizable as Chestnut Street. Deputy Jackson had been joined by what looked like the entire sheriff's department. Sheriff Callahan himself, arms folded at his chest, was speaking into a fuzzy red microphone, a reporter thrust across a yellow ribbon of caution tape the deputies must have erected sometime after Sarah and I moved into the kitchen. Beyond the tape, maybe 24 reporters and twice as many Sherwinites milled around. A few locals spoke into microphones or voice recorders, but most stood there tight-lipped, looking as if they expected the interloping reporters to start a fight. All this only registered in the back of my mind because my eyes were immediately drawn 15 feet or so to Callahan's left, where Frank had crossed the caution tape and waved a finger in Wally's face. Wally did not look pleased. His right hand seemed to be toying with the clasp of his handcuff pouch. "Frank," I called, jogging over. Frank's eyes lit up when he spotted me. "William, tell this jackbooted stormtrooper to let me through," he said indignantly. "Wally, he's all right," I said. "He's a friend." "Are you sure, Will?" Wally asked, eyeing Frank with equal parts suspicion and disgust. "He keeps shouting, 'Am I being detained?' 'I'm an American citizen and a business owner,' Frank exclaimed. 'I have the right to visit my friends and employees.' 'I wouldn't call us your employees, Frank,' I said. 'That isn't the point,' Frank shouted. At this point, several reporters had taken notice. I heard the click of camera shutters snapping shut, and my face began to redden in embarrassment. "Listen, Wally," I said. "He really is a friend. Claire asked me to come let him in." "Well, it is Claire's property, so as long as it's all right with her, it really is." He stepped aside, and Frank stalked past him, shouting over his shoulder, "I'll be writing a strongly worded letter about this encounter to the mayor of this fly-speck town." I rolled my eyes and gave Wally an apologetic smile before following Frank back into the house. By the time I made it through the door, Frank had already started in on Claire. "Even one mention of the book we've been pouring our blood, sweat, and tears into for over 4 years, he blustered. "And I had to find out from the news? I'm lucky Colin likes the weather report, or I wouldn't have even known my #1 artist is also a goddamn superhero." Claire giggled. "I'm your only artist, Frank." "That's besides the point." "Oh, don't be mad, Frank," she said. It had to be this way. "Why? Don't you trust me?" Frank sounded genuinely wounded. "Of course I trust you, buddy," Claire said, fighting like mad to keep from laughing again. Forcing your way in here and almost getting arrested was just way too funny a scene to pass up. There was a pause, and then she burst out laughing. I chuckled, and even Sarah, who'd been eyeing Frank with a fair bit of concern, covered a smile with her hand. "I changed my mind," Frank said. "You aren't a hero. You're a villain." Claire propped herself up on an elbow and extended her other arm. "Stop moping and hug me, you big baby." He sighed and did so. "Seriously, though," he said, moving her feet to take a seat on the couch before placing them over his lap. "Not a single mention of Leviathan Hunter?" The rest of the day went by without much incident. We played board games. Claire eventually lost the battle against her bladder and had to leave the couch for a few minutes. The crowd around the little yellow house eventually dispersed sometime in the mid-afternoon, when it became clear the girl who knew everything would not be making a public appearance, though Sheriff Callahan left Deputy Gale in a cruiser out front just in case. At dinner time, Frank surprised everybody, well, everybody except Claire, with a feast of some sort of stir-fry he scrounged together from whatever he could find in Claire's freezer. Afterward, Claire broke out a bottle of wine she'd apparently been saving for just this occasion. We talked and laughed, and I sat on Claire's comfy love seat with my arm around Sarah, her body pressed into mine long into the night. And so, the day I'd been dreading since Claire told me her secret so many years before turned out better than I could have imagined. But as it grew late, the question I'd shoved in a dusty corner of my brain forced itself to the forefront. "What are we going to do tomorrow, Claire?" I asked. "We can't hide in here forever." "Oh, you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to work in the morning," Claire said nonchalantly. "Claire, the press isn't just going to go away," Sarah said, leaning forward, leaving my arm and side feeling cold and alone. "The national news will be here by tomorrow. Maybe you should leave town for a few weeks." I tensed. We'd never discussed it again, but Claire and my conversation at the edge of the clearing graduation night was seared into my memory. "It'd be so easy," she'd said. "Fuck 'em," Frank slurred. In addition to the wine we'd all been drinking, he may have gotten into the cooking sherry while making dinner. "Exactly, Frank," Claire said, extending her hand for a high five, which he valiantly attempted and failed to meet. "Fuck 'em." "But," Sarah stammered, but a combination of heavy food and alcohol had slowed the analytical side of her brain, and she trailed off. "Just because I'm out in the open now doesn't mean I'm going to live my life any differently than I ever have. I'm the general manager at Dale's, and I help folks out when I can. Reporters can follow me to work if they want, but if they come inside, they better buy a coffee and leave me to my work. They can have a chat with Sheriff Callahan. Now I have to get up early, so if the three of you would be so kind, get the hell out of my house." Clearly, she'd made her decision, so we let it go and made our goodbyes. On the stoop, I opened my mouth to ask Sarah if she would like a nightcap, but Frank spoke first. "William, it seems I've been overserved," he said, bumping into me. "Would it be an imposition if I slept on your floor?" "Sure," I said, wrapping my arm around his shoulders to steady him. "Hey, Sarah, how long do you plan on staying in town?" She shrugged. "I've only got a few vacation days left, but I think after breaking the story of the year, my editor might give me some leeway." "Dinner tomorrow?" "Yes." I leaned in to kiss her, but Frank gave a mighty belch, and she crinkled her nose in revulsion. Her eyes smiled, though. "Tomorrow," she said, and headed down the street towards the motel. I set off towards my place, doing my best to steady Frank. "We know a superhero," he said happily. "Yes, we do, buddy," I said, waving to Deputy Gale, who may or may not have been reading a Harlequin romance novel in her cruiser. "Yes, we do." All right, that is the end of Chapter 17 of A Million Butterfly Wings. Thanks for watching, listening, whatever you're doing right now. You check out the book on Amazon or give your local bookstore a call, see if they'll stock it for you. Mean a lot if you checked it out. All right, I love you all different amounts. Goodbye.